Welcome to The Deciding Point, our Crack Racquets weekly breakdown of the biggest storylines happening throughout the tennis world. On this week's show, I want to recap the 2020 Summer Olympics, the tennis coming to a close, first-time medalists across the board in singles. I want to talk about the action that unfolded in doubles as well. Of course, we did have some ATP Tour action this week. John Isner, Casper Ruud extending their dominance respectively. Want to talk about both of their success this past week. And then, of course, we've got the City Open on our hands, the ATP 500 back in Washington, D.C. Rafael Nadal making his debut at the event. Want to preview the field and so much more. All of that on today's show. With that in mind, Westhoff, roll those credits. Let's get to the action. Of course, most of us were focused on the action happening in Tokyo last week, but it's worth noting that a couple of streaks of dominance were extended on the ATP Tour last week. Let's start with Casper Ruud. Anytime you win 3 consecutive events in 3 consecutive weeks on the ATP calendar, you will capture the attention of the tennis world. Casper Ruud has done exactly that, winning the titles in Gstaad, now Kitzbühel as well. It's worth noting he only beat one top 75 guy during that stretch. And of course, that one top 75 guy was Benoit Paire. But still, to win 12 matches over the course of 21 days, to win multiple 3-setters in your third week on the job as well, in Kitzbühel in particular, that 3-set final he earned over Pedro Martinez Portero, given the rain delays. Such a physical match. But, I mean, you got to give a shout out to the guy. And do I love the fact that his victory meal is only 10 McNuggets plus a flurry and a Diet Coke from McDonald's? No. Like, who goes to McDonald's, doesn't get fries? A. B, if you have won the event, I'm getting 20 nuggets, I'm getting 2 McFlurries, probably 3 fries, and I've earned some red meat, so I'll throw a burger in the mix there as well. But you look for Casper Ruud, of course you've probably seen this stat floating around. Technically, he's the first guy since Andy Murray in 2011 to win 3 consecutive events in 3 consecutive weeks. Andy Murray also did it in 2016, it's worth noting, but there was a week break between his title at the Paris Masters and the title at the ATP Tour Finals. But you look at that 2011 season, Murray did it, Federer did it, Djokovic actually did it twice. When you're keeping that sort of company, good news for Casper Ruud, who, by the way, earns his 5th ATP title of his career. I mentioned this in the Zverev portion. Zverev, the most ATP titles of the next gen, guys born after 1995 or later. You look for Casper Ruud, he's in the top 10 on that list with his 5 titles. And of course, he's on the younger side of that top 10 as well. You look for him now, 4 titles here this season, all of them, of course, coming on clay courts. But he's going to be making a push towards the top 10, folks. He's inside the top 15, very few points to defend down this hard court summer home stretch, and he still hasn't made a 4th round at the U.S. Open, hasn't made a quarterfinal at an Indian Wells, at a Western and Southern. Those are easy point opportunities for him here this summer. Is there any reason to think watching him play? Yes, he's dominant on clay courts. ELO ratings, he's now a top 8 guy. Clay court specific ELOs. He's, by the way, a top 11 guy in overall ELO rating now as well. But you look for Casper Ruud, that forehand, how dynamic it is, it can absolutely rip through a hard court. And the depth he's able to create on his backhand and the pace and then, the various angles as well, his movement, I think his game does translate. I've said it before. I think he's a mortal Rafael Nadal. It's the righty version. You see a lot of similarities between the whip and the heaviness of their forehand, but even the way they're so handsy to elevate the backhand as well. Casper Ruud, absolutely sensational. Again, a shout out to Pedro Martinez Portero, who makes his first ATP final, now inside the top 90 for the solidly for the first time in his career, and still also should have some opportunities to gain some points this summer as well. But man, Casper Ruud is a stud. And then you got to give a shout out to John Isner. Find someone who loves you the way John Isner loves playing the Atlanta event. The John Isner Open, essentially, because he's made 9 finals in 11 total events. He's won 6 titles in those 9 finals. I think he's like 36-5 overall in his career in Atlanta. Again, he's only lost, when he's played the event 11 times, he's made the final 9 of them. That's ridiculous. And you look at the sort of company he joins, it's like Federer at Wimbledon and Halle, Djokovic and I think Monte Carlo, and then Nadal, I suppose, everywhere on clay. But like Isner in Atlanta, that's where he hangs out. And I know it's a 250 event and it's not on the scale of the others, but you also look for John Isner in every season since all but 2 seasons since 2010. He's won at least one ATP title, and I know all but one of his ATP titles have been at the 250 level, but that matters. That is a degree of just sustained success that you have to tip your cap to and you have to respect. And yes, it's very one-dimensional. All of us have watched a John Isner match, and probably if you're listening to this podcast, you've watched enough John Isner in your career. But you gotta give props to the relentlessness, to just the dedication. Do you know how hard it is to maintain a 7-foot body? Do you know just how much of John Isner there is each and every day, and the sores he must feel, and just the eating and the stretching and the therapy, and just you have to respect the degree of professionalism he has showed, because that's what it takes, professionalism, to win, a title in all but 2 seasons since 2010, to be the highest ranked American male for as long as he was. And we're never gonna, unfortunately, when we look back at Isner's career, perhaps 20, 25 years from now, it'll likely be associated with the drought in American men's tennis and the lack of Grand Slam champions we had, because he was the best guy in that era. But he was the best guy. Let's be clear. And that degree of success should be respected. Gotta give a shout out to Isner, extending his streak, again, winning a 6th Atlantic title. He's got another child on the way as well. Mazel tov from us here at Cracked Racquets. But Casper, Ruud, John Isner, your 2 big winners of the week on the ATP Tour.